Hi, this is Greg. Look for my book, The Agile Brand, on Amazon or on my website at theagile.world. Welcome back to The Agile World. This is Greg Kihlstrom. I've talked quite a bit about what makes an Agile brand agile, what makes it successful. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about reaching audiences, and in this case, reaching different generations. As I mentioned before on an earlier episode, I'm sure we've all seen many articles, podcasts, videos about how to reach millennials. That particularly a few years ago was all the rage of trying to make sense of it. As millennials have kind of matured and entered the workforce and now are really part of the workforce and growing up, so to speak, some of their habits look a lot like their predecessors. Some of them are different. I think there's some differences in how they approach values-based organizations and all of that. But we're also now focusing on Gen Z, the next generation. Those, according to every source has a slightly different date here, but those born after 2004 generally make up Gen Z. So as we've seen over the years. As generations are more and more accustomed to growing up with the internet, with computer access, but then the internet, then social media, their habits have changed. Their shopping habits have changed. I mean, we see the change in retail behavior, how Amazon and online retailers are making up such a big force in the market. How physical retailers are often going out of business, particularly ones that are a little less focused. We've seen how, shopping habits, as far as recommendations go, have changed a lot. Referrals, recommendations, word of mouth, all of those types of things have changed. And, Gen Z is really they're the first generation that has completely grown up in a digital world. With the internet, they never knew a world without the internet. It's conceivable some millennials grew up in a world before the internet was such a big thing. Jeremy Finch, in an article in Fast Company, puts it this way: Gen Z has grown up in a world where their options are limitless, but their time is not. As such, Gen Z have adapted to quickly sorting through and assessing enormous amounts of information. Once something has demonstrated attention-worthiness, Gen Z can become intensely committed and focused. They've come of age with an internet that's allowed them to go deep on any topic of their choosing and learn from like-minded fans. So, this says a few things that are kind of interesting, and doing some other research on the topic, there's kind of a cliche that says younger generations have really short attention spans. And I think for, in a big way that's true. They have short attention spans until they don't. So what I mean by that is, as that quote that I read earlier says, they have access to limitless information. So they are not going to dive deep on every little thing that's put in front of them. But when they find something they're interested in, they're actually willing to spend time on it. So that means that, every video doesn't have to be 5 seconds in order to capture their attention. But you need to be able to make a point, make it quickly, and then, then give someone the opportunity to dive deeply into it. There's a few things that I go through in my book that I believe will help there's a few things that I go through in my book that will help brands be more successful with future generations. There's really four rules that I give here. The first thing is what I call the 8-second rule. So make it really quick and easy to get your point across. It doesn't mean that you only have 8 seconds to make a bigger point and get your entire message through, but try to make sure that you can get at least your initial point through in a short amount of time. Remember the importance of values. Both millennials and Gen Z, and I would imagine future generations, place a great importance on values and want to support brands, want to work with brands that support their same values. Remember the importance of authenticity. As I've talked about several times already on this podcast, make sure that the words that you say, the stories that you tell, ring true. And finally, remember the importance of giving consumers a voice. There's so much opportunity, social media being the obvious thing here, but there's so much opportunity to allow consumers to actually contribute ideas, opinions, feedback. Make sure that you build your brand around that. And when you do, you'll be successful. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is what's referred to as Generation C. So there's some alternate schools of thoughts on this whole idea of generational marketing. Google famously kind of coined the idea of life moment marketing, where it's not so much about how old someone is, it's about what they're going through at a certain point in life. So, for instance, someone buying a house, a millennial buying a house, a Gen Xer like myself buying a house, a boomer buying a house, they're all going through some similar things. Now, the millennial might, if stereotypes are correct, might have more student loan debt. A Gen Xer might have less savings, so on and so forth. But they're all going through similar things. They're trying to find a place for themselves and their family. That conversation was, I think, a very interesting one that kind of took us outside of this concept of generational marketing. Another concept is this idea of Generation C, which really as early as 2004, there was an article in a publication called Trend Watching that really defined this group, Generation C, which the C stands for connected. So what it means is people that are part of this, the internet. I think just kind of using that as a blanket term, that's an easy way of talking about it. But this Generation C, not only are they connected to the internet, but they're also creators. They're people that aren't afraid to build on something, to take something. They want things that are customized to them, to use another C word, but they want things tailored to them. They are heavy adopters of these digital technologies, and because they really kind of get it. They could be a boomer, they could be Gen X, they could be millennial, they could be Gen Z, but they're people that really embrace this idea of being connected to one another, connected to the latest in technology, and connected to brands, and able to get what they want when they need it, how they need it, and in this really customized way. When we look at people outside of generations, it's pretty interesting because it allows us to focus more on the problems the problems and the challenges that they're undergoing. There's so many, as another aspect of millennials and Gen Z as well is just how diverse they are. And so it becomes really hard. It was always kind of hard to pigeonhole a baby boomer or a Gen Xer into one specific type of person. But millennials, I'm sure you've read the statistics, most diverse generation of their time. Gen Z is, I'm sure, even more diverse. I don't have the latest statistics on that, but as we get more and more diverse, it becomes harder and harder to say, okay, if you were born between this year and that, you are a certain way. Instead, what is this person going through? How connected are they to the world? What is their circle of friends, of colleagues, of family doing? What is their situation? I think that's the new idea of generation. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the coming years. In the next few episodes, I'm going to talk about how to create an Agile brand. Thanks for listening. See you next week. If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please rate the show on iTunes or contact me through my website at theagile.world. You can find my books, The Agile Brand and The Agile Web, on Amazon and on my website at theagile.world.